Because in the end, just maybe to go a little bit in here, is like, so, I mean, a tracking plan. What is a tracking plan? A tracking plan usually consists of different kind of items, so usually like, of course, events. Then, of course, of properties. And then maybe of, so properties can be for events or can be for users. That's it usually. Of course, you can add a lot of context information as well, so you can describe it, and so like, let's say, call it meta info, and so on. So this is what is in the tracking plan. So the obvious first thing that you think about, okay, when I want to create a tracking plan, it can happen in a spreadsheet. So usually, like, and this was where I started as well. So most of the tracking plans that I had were like created in a Google Sheet. Why Google Sheet? Because it's easy to share and to work with different kind of people in this kind of sheet. But it definitely has some limitation. One limitation is definitely that it has some versioning, but the versioning, to work with the versioning in Google Sheets is a little bit complicated. So if especially multiple people work on this kind of integration, so it's really hard to follow up where they do changes and so on. So you end up with these, okay, someone makes a comment, you have to resolve the comment and so on. Doable, but a little bit clunky. The biggest problem that I had when I was working with tracking plans in Google Sheets is like, the data is not really connected and it's often mixed up. So what you have is like, so you have an event like newsletter subscribe, and then you have something like email domain. And so you write it like this. But you maybe have different kind of events where you use this property email domain. And at some point you want to decide, maybe email domain is not such a good name, or we want to write it differently, so you have to change it. So in a spreadsheet, you always come in the situation that you then have to find all instances of that and change it there. And usually their stuff gets wrong. So over time, because we are humans, we are not so good in making sure that we cover all instances because we are not a machine. And so you don't see one instance, you forget it, and basically like your tracking plan goes out of order. Besides that, it's a hell of work to do this. So especially like in an early stage where you still play a little bit around, like spreadsheet really can make things really difficult. So the same is like, I mean, I often start out, and you know this from my videos, is like, let's say a whiteboard, or like here, whimsical, or Miro. And so this is the same thing. So of course, like, it works super well. I like to start there because it gives me the possibility to play around and so on. But at some point when I know, okay, now this goes basically into implementation and so on, I move it to a different tool. And so there's definitely maybe one alternative that I want to show. So for example, what I did in the past pretty often was like to use something like Airtable. So because Airtable has the benefit that I can basically create at least two tables, so one for the events, so the other one for the properties, and then I can assign the properties to the events. And by that, I definitely resolve the problem that I had before, where when I want to change a property that I would have to change it in all instances. Here I just change the property and it automatically ends up in the right place. And so Airtable is definitely a good place to start. But it's still it's still hard to see all the changes over time. It's hard to collaborate on these kind of things to do it properly, and of course, like, it doesn't have some kind of testing. So this is the reason why I, in the end, on all projects that I work on, I use Arvo, because Arvo has, first of all, it has a very good free plan where I can just create a tracking plan. Then we have a central place where everyone can just look into and see how we have defined and created these different kind of events. And usually it's pretty quick to work within Arvo. So you will see in a second how easy it is to create this. And in the end, I want to get this. So having a tracking plan and some kind of tool is definitely good and it's great, but I don't trust systems that don't have some kind of validation and testing patterns. And so this is why I use Arvo, because now I can basically hook it up in these kind of, let's say, testing validation cycle. And so I can when we do first-time implementation, it's a great thing to immediately see if like the things that have been implemented are implemented in the right way. When it's in a production environment, because I have one thing in Arvo that the other tools also don't have, or I have to create a second instance. It's like I can work in different environments, so different stages. So I usually at least have in Arvo one like dev stage implementation, one production stage implementation of the tracking things. And then, for example, when we introduce new events, someone can implement them on the development stage, and I will immediately see in Arvo if like the new events that we defined here are tracked in the right way, and then we can push it to production. And so this for me is like reason enough to use it. And so this is the reason why I show you now how I use it. So let's get started.